Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joseph Novichkov, Senior Trading Manager with GDM. Today's outlook. Firstly, we're going to start with the Asian markets. Of course, as we've been following, we saw that they ended mostly lower on Wednesday, but of course, slightly remained relevant and resilient after a terrorist attack in Belgium on Tuesday. Following the Japanese benchmark Nikkei 225 index, which of course closed down 47.57 points, or about 0.28% at 17,000.98 mark. After, of course, it has finished nearly 2% higher on the previous session. Chinese markets closed slightly higher with the Shanghai Composite Index adding about 11.42 points, or about 0.38% at 3010.79. And of course, tracking the Australian S&P 200 Index, which finished about 24.35 points down, or about 0.47% at 142.26. That, of course, weighed on the losses in the financial and energy markets, which were down about 0.4% and, of course, 1.08% respectively. European equities, as they've been tracked, opened higher on Wednesday following the terrorist attack, as we mentioned, in Belgium, which claimed to have been carried out by the Islamic State. The Pan-European Stock 600 Index was up around 0.2%, with, of course, the mildly higher open, which came after the Belgium attack, in which, as of course we saw on the news, that 30 people at least were killed and many were also injured. Global terrorist organization ISIS, which respectively claimed the responsibility for the supposed suicide bombings that took place in the capital city and the airports and metro station. The dollar, which steadied early on Wednesday's session, which was underpinned by the hawkish comments from the U.S. Federal Reserve and their officials, as of course we are also tracking the Asian investors that reacted to these overnight news from the attacks in Brussels. Tracking the so-called Dixie, or the dollar index, which tracked the U.S. currency against 6 major rivals, it inched about 0.1% higher to the index of 95.758. Against the euro, however, the dollar edged slightly higher with 0.1% to 1.1207, although it was well under the post-attack low of 1.1188. Gold in the commodity sector slipped 0.4% to 1243.60 an ounce in late Asian trade, with the trade expected to wind down ahead of the Easter holidays, which are starting on Friday this week. Prices have been trading in a very narrow range, which was bound between 1240 an ounce and 1270 an ounce for the past 1 week. Also tracking oil prices in the energy sector, they fell slightly in early Asian trading on Wednesday after, of course, we saw the figures from an industry group that showed the U.S. crude stockpiles rose last week from the expected, reinforcing concerns that supply continues to exceed demand. The front-month contract in U.S. crude futures was down about 40 cents at $41.05 a barrel by the late Asian session. And of course, the contract struck a 2016 high of $41.90 in the previous session, before, of course, closing at 41.45. The contract has rebounded about 58% has been tracked since hitting its lowest level in 2003. In February. That was the American Petroleum Institute, which is of course a private industry group, that said in a report after Tuesday's oil market settlement that U.S. crude stockpiles rose about 8.8 million barrels last week to reach a record high of 531.8 million. Also, later in the day, we're expecting to see the Energy Information Administration's crude oil stock change report, which is going to shed a little bit more light for the next possible oil direction. That's all for today. Thank you for being with us. See you next time. Bye-bye.